Oh, that's nice.
Please exit the train.
The next stop is Terminal A. This is your mayor. Get off here.
Oh, man. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm James Orr. Let's see here. Good evening. I'm James Orr. Tonight we're doing From Zero to $1 Million in Investment Real Estate interview with Mary. Thank you. Welcome, Mary. So upcoming classes, while we're waiting for the last couple of minutes, stragglers coming in. So tonight we're doing From Zero to $1 Million in Investment Real Estate interview. And Mary's our special guest, which we will introduce in a second here. Next week, Brian is going to be doing bookkeeping and accounting for real estate investors. What's that one about?
We're going to teach you how to embezzle money.
No, just kidding. We're going to teach you how to do bookkeeping and accounting for anywhere from 1 to however many properties you have. The system that I use, which includes how to keep your books, how to store your files, and there's a spreadsheet involved that you guys can have if you want it to use. That basically enables you to put all your information in one spreadsheet and then hand that to your accountant at the end of the year to make it super easy.
Awesome, thank you very much. And then Brian is also going to teach deal. Look at this, I have like the month off. Deal Analysis 301 Multifamily. What's that one about?
So the past 2 years, I've done a case study on. I teach deal analysis for multifamily, but part of that's a case study on a 17-unit apartment building that I own. And so this will be year 3 of that case study, and potentially a case study of a new small apartment building that I purchased with a couple other people about a year-ish ago, and the case study on that and what the outlook is, and you can compare it to the first one, and we'll go from there. So it should be amazing.
Thank you very much. And then, like I said last week when we were doing this, the week after that, June 28th, is scheduled for real estate investing portfolio analysis. I don't remember what I was going to teach that week, so
Maybe we should do the stuff that you didn't know that week, if you don't know what you're doing. We
yeah.
can, like, just do back and forth and do like 10-minute topics.
And have people bring their own horror stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we might actually change that topic. So
Like
kind of.
what you expected and what went wrong and what you do differently.
All right. So Brian and I are going to talk about that. Basically, we may do real estate investing nightmares. Oh, well then that's why that's why that schedule is on there. Yeah. So that one will stay on there, something like that. And then a week after that, I threw this up there last week. It is the 2 best investing strategies for our market right now. So basically that will be the 2 strategies that are working right now in our marketplace. There's not a lot of strategies that are really effective right now in our marketplace. Rising prices, interest rates going up, rents not rising quite as fast, a shortage of properties for doing fix and flip. So there's quite a shortage of deals right now and strategies that are working. There are 2 that are working really, really well. We will cover both of those on June 27th. So that is the upcoming schedule.
I have a lot of coffee in me.
So introductions, what we're going to do is go around the room. Who are you, and then what's your biggest challenge with the real estate brokerage business right now? Trying to get some feedback as to what people don't like about working with their agent or broker, both on the buy side and sell side. So if you go ahead and introduce who you are, and then what's your biggest challenge, we could do that, and we'll start over here, Brian.
Must be the compliment I paid you earlier today. I get to start for once instead of you skipping me. I'm Brian Williams, long-term investor in northern Colorado. I usually sit in the back, so turning around is, I feel totally out of place in class. This is messed up. My biggest challenge with the real estate brokerage business, I don't really have one because I use James and Tammy as my agents. I will tell you that I went to a property today, and then I called James afterwards, and I was just like, I'm so glad that you do things so much better than everyone else, because it's just stupid how bad some agents are. So I don't really have any challenges, and I'm about to be $100 richer. There better be 100. What? Oh, never mind. Don't. That was worth at least 100. I say that in all seriousness. I mean, like, Tammy's mails are a little over the top right now because I'm used to like buying and selling properties. But like, if you're not, they're fantastic. They tell you everything you want to know. But you know, they have it down. So.
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that, but
Don't like, by the way.
Oh,
It's
I
not
don't
what you
like.
do like.
Gotcha.
This is not like a puff piece for James. I really do want to know what the problems are.
all right. I'm Royce Quintana. I'm also a long-term buy and hold investor up here in Northern Colorado. From my experience working with, I've never closed on a property with someone else, but I've had others show me properties before I started using James. It seems like there's a lot of people who are in it to make a quick buck. There's a lot of people who got into it without it being the intent of it being a true business. And so one of the things James really pushes hard is this very systemized process, and I've closed on multiple houses with him, and it is very consistent, and it makes the actual transaction very easy. And I don't think I would feel the same way. I feel like I need to do a lot more homework, and I'll put a lot more effort in if it was, with a lot of these other.
Thank you.
Hey, I am Brian Armstrong. 8 to 5, I do insurance, home, auto, landlord, pretty much anything but health because that's gross. So if you have questions about that, let me know after class. And buy and hold investor, I don't currently have any big challenges with the real estate brokerage. I've heard other people talk about lack of response time, and since we have to make quick offers in our market, that it's tough to get a hold of the broker or their assistants or their team or whatever to go see a place or to make an offer in a reasonable amount of time. But I haven't heard that about James and Tammy.
Jesse, and still learning, so I haven't done any of that yet.
Awesome, thanks.
Hi, I'm Corey. New to the real estate. I do fix and flip and long-term holds. Currently haven't had any problems with my real estate brokerage, but I do all my business out of state, so I haven't even met my real estate broker yet.
Awesome.
I'm John Wolfenberger, and I'm brand new to doing real estate stuff. I'm actually looking for a real estate agent that works with investors, looking at getting into doing wholesaling.
You found it.
You found it.
Don't look any further.
All right, I'm Wes File. I am an attorney and also just recently transferred into doing real estate. So I'm with eXp Realty right now and just getting started looking into start doing some investment stuff.
Yeah, I thought about getting my own law degree so I could kill my own deals, but never really got it.
I'm Matt Weaver, and I haven't had any real challenges with real estate brokerages yet, but I guess the biggest thing I've noticed is communication. That tends to be a problem. Yeah.
My name is Elijah. Nothing recent, but in the past, agreeing with Brian, it was just communication, simple thing like returning phone calls or emails.
Yeah. The bar is really low. The biggest complaint is people calling them back. That's hard.
So I'm Patrick, and I think I have a different perspective on the real estate brokerage part and on the mortgage side. It is communication. I think you guys do a great job of it, but there's so many agents out there that are just terrible. They miss contingencies, they don't forward over amendments, just everything that, working on this side of it that they should be communicating to us that they don't. So, and I think you said it, that people don't treat it like a profession. Anybody can become a realtor, doesn't require a degree, and a lot of them just have no plan. They have no way to execute or do anything like that. So they go on vacation for a week and they've got a listing or something like that, and no one to follow up with. So I think that's partially it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Denise Malal, long-term buy and hold in Northern Colorado. I use James and Tammy. I love it. They keep me on track, make sure I don't miss any deadlines. I can't think of any challenges.
I'm Alan Chen, and I guess I didn't know. So before I worked with James, I had this other realtor who I thought was great, and but then I didn't. But then but looking back in hindsight, I realized that she was not as knowledgeable as James is, and looking back, I know that I lost a deal on a property that I really loved because she just didn't have the same process and the knowledge that James has. So.
Thank you. I got to give out a lot of money tonight, it looks like. This was not the intention, actually. I was really looking for feedback.
Yeah, we can sell it later.
Yeah.
I'm Nick Augustine. I only have a couple transactions, and both of them were terrible. But I also think that's how I got as good a
To be
deal.
fair, that was not me.
Yeah. Suppose I should have started with that. But I also think that's how I got as good a deal as I did, because she was so bad that nobody else. And then the next one that I will do, which I just finished my third Nomad, will be through James. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Dominic. Still getting started, trying to get my first wholesale deal done. So I haven't had any challenges or any run-ins with the brokerage yet, so not there yet.
I'm going to be one of the different ones here. I am a real estate agent. I own Turnkey Realty. I'm the broker there. As far as, challenges, everything that you guys have said, the communication is key. And the reason I'm here is knowledge is key.
Sure. Awesome. Thanks, Paul.
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm a newbie, but I think my biggest challenge will be if a person's not transparent.
I'm Curtis. I really don't have any problems with James or Tammy. I have more problems with figuring out the market more than anything else.
Yeah, market is tough.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I haven't bought a property yet in this state. However, I did go to look at a few weeks ago, and I couldn't get a hold of my agent. So that was one of my issues. And secondly, my challenge is getting the lockbox key codes.
Getting the codes. If you're not an Asian, it's hard for you to get them.
That
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's a good reason you can't get those.
My name's Ben. I build student housing, and I haven't taken any action, so I haven't really dealt with any real estate agents yet.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Lance. I'm a commercial and residential general contractor, and I haven't really had any transactions with any real estate agents, but one of the things that I don't like about the real estate part of it, I've done my closings by myself. I own commercial property, and I don't like the commission structure. So that's my biggest problem.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm actually a commercial brokerage side of things, and I think consistently it's the lack of communication and sometimes of a lack of attention to detail.
Hello, my name's Austin Mills. I'm into buy and hold, and I only have 2 properties so far, so I'm really here for knowledge and to learn strategy more than anything. As far as challenges, it hasn't been with realtors, it's been more with loan officers. Same issue communication, but just wanting much faster response than versus a day or 2 turnaround time.
My name's Bob Thalen, and I can't say that we've had any challenges lately as we are in the rental market but haven't been looking to do a deal for quite some time.
And I'm with him. My name's Barbie.
My name is Chad Quiller. I'm an accountant, and I'm just here for information. So I haven't had too many interactions with too many realtors or anything like that. But I do own one property, and looking forward to getting more involved in this.
Hi, my name is Xenia, and I haven't had any big challenges. My realtor was really great, but I do know her for several years. But I think the challenge is just the market and the prices.
It's definitely a tough market.
My name's Munir. Can't think of any challenges that we've had recently since we've been working with James. So.
Hi, I'm Sean. I guess my biggest challenge or dislike of the brokerage business is more the business itself. It's set up really to keep people from being able to sell their own home. The way everything's set up, sellers have no incentive to do anything but go to a broker, and it kind of makes buyers have no reason but to go to a broker, and so it makes the sellers use them instead of having another avenue to easily do it. I've bought and sold by owner, and it's not a big hassle to do. It's not really hard. So.
I'm Tammy Orr, and I would say from being a broker myself that I've worked with a lot of great
brokers who are super communicative, but when they are not very communicative or hard to get a hold of and I need something from them, that's the frustrating part. But there are a lot of great brokers, and then there's some that, you know, who knows, maybe they have something going on in their life, but it's frustrating when you're on the other side of that, for sure.
Awesome. Do we miss anybody? Allison shanked somebody, and we'll just skip for now. Oh, wait, we are missing somebody. We are missing the special guest. So who are you? What's your biggest challenge in real estate brokerage?
Oh, I'm Mary. Biggest challenge. Honestly, I can't really think of anything. Basically all the properties that I've purchased have been with James and Tammy, and so it's always been, well, I mean, sometimes there's little hiccups here and there. Everybody knows that. It doesn't always run totally smoothly, but when there's hiccups, they fix them quickly. So I would not use anybody else besides them.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, cool. So we'll do a couple more things, then we're going to go right into the thing. So one announcement, the podcast, we had some problems the last few weeks with recording the classes. We used to record on this computer here, and the software changed on it. So there was 1 week we couldn't record the class at all. It didn't work. So that class is lost forever. And then last week we did record it. I think that worked out well. And then tonight we're going to see if it works. So if for some reason you think you really want to attend a class, you cannot rely on the class being posted as a recording, because we've been having some technical issues. But if it is recorded, it goes up on the podcast. So if you want to write that down, there's 110 or 114 classes up there now, something like that. And like each one's about 2 hours long. For those, how many people are new? Raise your hand if you've never been here before. Okay, so tonight's class is very different than what's normal. We've never actually had someone come in and do an interview type process before. So this is completely brand new. Most of the time we have someone, Brian or me, actually teach a class on a very specific topic, and we go to like crazy freaky town with detail on how to do that one little niche. And it's not just, you know, property management in general. Oh, Royce is making a backup recording. Thank you. So basically tonight is very different. So we're doing an interview with Mary. Mary's going to share with you a little bit about the Nomad strategy she's been using, and it's been working really well in the marketplace. And so all the classes are up here. Everything you need to know from how to structure financing, different investing models. How many people are doing wholesaling? Raise your hands again. There was like 4 or 5. So wholesaling is really hard in this marketplace. You'll find that when the market starts to transition from being an extreme seller's market to even a more neutral market to a buyer's market, the market will change. So if you guys are prepared for that and ready to do it and doing your marketing and ready to go, you'll be in a really good position to do it. Right now, it's really, really hard. If you could find a deal, it's great, because you can find seller, you can find buyers really easily. But the challenge is finding good enough deals for your buyers in this particular marketplace. And there's a whole bunch of classes on wholesaling, how to do off-market analysis, how to find the wholesale deals, how to wholesale them. There's a whole bunch of stuff on there. So we don't teach a lot of classes because the market's so hard to do that, but we have ones in the library on how to do it. And then when the market changes, we'll kind of transition back around. So sorry if you came for wholesaling tonight. We're not going to do wholesaling. All right, any other questions on a podcast? All right, so now we're going to do Mary's interview. So
Great.
Before we get started, thank you very much for coming, Mary. Aww. This is your payment in advance. This is your gift card. It's actually for
How
Red Robin.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
yay.
And there's 2 ones on there. They're stuck together using
Well,
like
look
the
at
little
that.
booger glue.
Oh, the booger glue.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
You are very, very welcome.
Everybody needs booger glue.
Your mic should be on, I think.
I don't know, is it? Turn me on.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so Mary's turned on. How many people came to class? How many people came to class? You guys have dirty minds. Get out of the gutter right now. How many people came to class last week where you got a free copy of the newest book? Did you guys read the dedication to the book? So that last book was dedicated to Mary. So if you're wondering who it was, that was Mary's book. And when I gave you a copy of the book, what did you say to me? This is the one about how to do it on $5,000 a month.
I wish that I was making $5,000 a month.
There you go. So Mary says she wished she was making $5,000 a month.
I'd
So
be buying more properties.
she would be buying more properties. So what's going to be interesting tonight is seeing how Mary did it, and we will go into detail. If you feel uncomfortable answering a question, just call Fal and say that's a little private. I'm not willing to do that. But I will tell you, Mary is pretty open. So I don't suspect that to be the issue. Just stay clean, guys, especially after earlier about me turning Mary on. So okay. So,
That's awkward.
in case
but
you didn't
all
hear
right.
it. Exactly. Well, it's in the front of the room. I can't do anything crazy up here. Okay, so Mary, you want to give us
Again, still awkward. Do I need to like
Make it
move
worse?
over?
I apologize.
Tammy!
You have no lifeline here, Mary. She's and it's documented. We're recording it, so.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Keep
okay,
going. Keep
that
going,
sounds
buddy.
good. All right, I appreciate that.
Maybe you'll be buying my next house.
There you go. This is the strategy. This is how you buy your next house. All right, so Mary, so how did you get started in real estate investing? Did you basically grow up doing this? Have you did you
No.
inherit millions of dollars?
No.
So what's your background?
Honestly, it was kind of born out of necessity. A little background about me. I work at the post office, and when you wake up and realize that you could work at the post office for another 30 plus years, 35 years, and not really have anything for your retirement, it's sobering, and you start looking at different. We're like, okay, well, how am I going to do this? Because I don't want to work at Walmart as a greeter when I'm 80 years old, or be at Taco Bell. So I've always kind of been interested in real estate, and met James and Brian back in, when was it? Like 2013, late 2012?
Yeah, it's probably somewhere in that
About
time. How'd you meet us?
You're going to make me do it, aren't you?
Well, I just want to know.
Okay, so I went to a real estate, like a seminar. I don't know if anybody, Fortune Builders, if anybody is familiar. Okay, so part of that, they were saying plug into your local real estate investment groups, do a my site? Meetup, great. Okay, so that's kind of where I found James, was on one of the my sites. Went to one of the meetings, started hanging out with these two ding-dongs. It's true.
Yeah.
Brian's kind of the one, you're the one that really put it in my head that he made a comment one night that he's like, why don't you just buy properties yourself? Because I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have to partner with somebody because I'm just a girl and I can't do this by myself and I don't have a lot of cash, and so I'm going to have somebody help me. So he was like, why can't you just, buy your own property and like start saving your own down payment and do it that way? And then I went home that night and thought, well, he thinks I can do it, so okay. Came back to the next meeting and then sat down with James and was like, okay, so what do I need to do? So it was kind of a backtrack from there where, okay, let's get you pre-approved for something, like what could we qualify you for, which will then tell you how much of a down payment you need. And we talked about options with that. You could do 20% down, you could do 5% down, you could do 3.5% down. There's all these different loans. So long story short, we basically came down to the conclusion that Mary needs to find somehow to save up. Basically $15,000 was my first number goal, as far as that's going to be your down payment. That'll be for your inspection and for your appraisal, and you hopefully will have some money left over for your washer and dryer or a refrigerator once we get you into the property. So that was kind of the beginning.
So let's back up a little bit. So before you went to Fortune Builders, how'd you find out about those guys, or even decide you wanted to get interested in real estate at all?
Oh, Fortune Builders?
Yeah, like
I heard about that on the radio.
So it was a radio ad.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, what the heck, I'll go and check it out.
So you heard the radio ad, you decided to go. Did you go alone or did you bring someone else?
At the time, I went alone, and then I was with someone at the time, and then they came to the next meeting with me. But I mean, mostly it's been just me doing it.
So you heard the radio ad, you went to the kind of preliminary pitch where they get you all juiced up and excited about investing in real estate. Did they sell you something that night?
No, not that night. Basically the next pitch that they do, it was mainly like they come into the area and they say, hey, we can, you can wholesale or you can fix and flip and you can make millions of dollars in real estate, which in a lot of markets that is true, but in Fort Collins area, not so much. So I kind of came to Brian and James with that thought in my head that I'm going to wholesale and I'm going to fix and flip, and they both pretty much were like, yeah, that's a great idea, except we don't live in Iowa, or we're not in Chicago, or we're not in a market that is going to support that. So that's why it kind of morphed into something else. I was like, okay, well, obviously that's not going to get me where I need to be. So
if I remember correctly, you didn't just take no for an answer either. I think you actually went out there and you were calling for sale by owners, and you were hustling and doing stuff. And you met with some sellers and made some offers, right? Didn't you? You went out. Brian went out.
Huh?
I thought about that though.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. you try it, you know, I mean, there's no harm in knowledge of that. I mean, going through, you know, putting stuff under contract as a wholesaler and, you know, trying to figure out how you're going to find a buyer for that property, for that person. You can never go wrong with trying new things and having experience in all different aspects. It just ultimately didn't turn out to be something that I was like, this isn't going to get me where I need to go, was basically it.
Was it the lack of being able to find sellers with good enough deals, or was it that it wasn't going to make you enough money? Why did you decide to stop doing that?
All of the above.
All of them?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It seemed like it's kind of like eating ribs. It was a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because you get all greasy and there's not a lot of meat there and you're like, oh, that was fun. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I felt with the wholesaling. For myself, it just wasn't my cup of tea as far as my burning desire for real estate. That's not where my niche was.
And so you were basically calling out for sale by owners, going to meet with them and telling them what you could do as far as price. And sometimes you'd bring Brian. I think you went to a couple of them, right?
Yeah, he helped me out quite a bit.
Yeah, and so Brian went to
awesome.
out on basically seller presentations with you to see if it was a good
Yeah.
deal. And I thought there was one that came close. Wasn't there one?
Yeah, it actually.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was one that actually backs to the 17-unit building that I own now. And so there was like a series of 5 or 6
in a row
condos that were all in one building. And like, probably in hindsight, we probably should have figured out a way to buy all of them, because we were thinking about that was one of the thoughts, was this guy wants to sell, and he was like the head of the HOA, and it was like a 5-unit HOA. And so it was like, well, 3 of the other people will probably sell, 1 person won't, and it was like, probably should have bought 4 of them and held out for the 5th one to really go at it. But I will say something that, like, I think what Mary did was taking action and going out and making those phone calls. I will say that 99% of the people, or whatever percentage you want to apply, the majority of people that come to class or go and get involved in Fortune Builders or come here or go to wherever else aren't willing to take that action. And so my guess is that the amount of information she learned by going on seller presentations and trying to make offers exceeds what most people will get by not doing that. And so taking action is key.
Yeah, I'll second that as well. Mary is definitely someone who takes action. When she sets her mind to it, she just goes for it, and that's pretty impressive. So it's actually good to see. And I saw that actually very early on when you were, talking to the sellers and going and making offers and stuff like that, because you were really hustling. After work, you'd go out there and go through for sale by owners and ask me about stuff, and go out with Brian and do stuff like that. So yeah, that's awesome. So you basically went to the Fortune Builders the first meeting, went to the second meeting. What happened at the second meeting for you?
I purchased one of the, it's been so long ago. How do I even describe it? Okay, so they help you for a fee, get set up as far as with, finding leads and getting your computer stuff set up and how you want to do it. They had a good support system. I was involved with a lot of the mentoring side of it, and I learned a lot from those people as well, as far as I met a lot of buy and hold investors and how they were doing things. So I got to see a different side of it, not just the wholesaling, fix and flip part of it. So again, more information and knowledge, which is never a bad thing. Looking back, probably the cash that I spent on that would have been a nice down payment on a property. But again, I wasn't thinking in that, I was figuring this is what I'm supposed to be doing because they say it'll work. So okay, let's keep doing it that way. But then once I got hooked in with these guys and was starting, then my eyes were open to what the market really is in Fort Collins, Loveland, Windsor, even Greeley now. Greeley is really starting to take off as well. It just wasn't feasible for what I was wanting to do and in the time frame that I was wanting to do it. So the other side of that, I guess, is have your ultimate goal in mind, but be flexible enough to realize that you might need to maybe change your direction of how you're going to get there. It's not always going to be a straight line to where you need to be at the end of the race. Sometimes you got to do your thing and maybe zig when someone else is zagging. So,
can I ask about how much you paid for the education stuff?
Was that what you're going to ask, Royce? Ballpark figure, probably $20,000, $25,000.
So you put $25,000 into education, and then you used it. How much? I don't think I've ever asked you this before. How much of the education that you got from them did you actually use when you physically closed and bought your first house? Do you think that it was half of it you learned there, all of it you learned there?
That's a good question. I would say maybe 50%.
So about half of the knowledge you needed to actually close your first deal you got from the classes?
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, a lot more of it I got from you two.
Do you still have access to their training? Are you able to do more training with them, or is it
No.
like for a year or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a moratorium on it. They give you a certain time frame that, they're hoping you're going to be up on your feet and kind of doing what you need to do by a certain time.
Awesome. And so you started coming to class, you basically finished those, and then they told you to come to meet up and join your local group where you could find out more about your local market and meet lenders and buyers and
Build your team, build your
dream
people.
team.
Yep.
Do that. And then basically once you got your kind of like joining the meetup and started doing that, you did the wholesaling for a little while trying to find deals. You didn't actually end up closing any wholesale deals, right?
Nope, never
so
did.
you did that. So I remember one night we went to get ice cream. Right? Then we went to get ice cream. It was like after the meeting, we were hanging out and we're like, hey, let's go grab ice cream. And I think Brian has he's like awesome, but he is like super accountability. Yeah, we love Brian. But he's like super accountability, like challenges you to like rise up and do the things you're supposed to do. And I remember him putting it to Mary that night. I was like, wow. He's like, so you should just go buy a house right now. I mean, nothing for no other reason. You can't defend yourself
He's
yet.
like,
Hey, for no other reason, you should just go buy this one house, and then at least you'll have a house, and then you can start there. You want to defend yourself?
I'm not actually going to defend myself. Like,
Yeah, no kidding.
for I don't know how many people in this room have walked into this class and said, "Oh, I want to wholesale," and have had the half an hour of me like yelling at them after class that that's not the best idea.
Telling them, don't do it.
I can dig my own hole, right? But like, I truly believe in that because I think, right, the conversation in a nutshell goes like this, right? In order to be an amazing wholesaler, you have to understand how to talk to sellers. In order to talk to sellers effectively, you need to know all sorts of exit strategies for them, subject to buying on lease option, selling on lease option, buying it straight out, buying it with cash in 7 days. Like, and if you've never done any of those things yourself, chances are high you don't know how to do it without having done it, right? That makes sense, right? And so it's hard to understand that, but you get caught up in the, hey, I can wholesale and I can make a little money and then I can fix and flip, I can make more money and then I'll buy and hold. When in reality, you can just skip the first two and go straight to buy and hold and start. And James has an awesome chart that basically shows for every house you own, it's like doing a fix and flip every year. So make your choice, right? But make your choice wisely with some data behind it so that you can actually do it. That's actually not what I thought you were going to talk about. You're going to get to the rest of that discussion over ice cream?
You tell him, actually.
I'll let you keep going and I'll fit it in where it's appropriate.
So I don't remember what the...
Mary can bring it up if she remembers the rest of that discussion.
No, I'm not saying a word.
Oh, so you do know and I don't remember?
You're just supposed to ask me questions.
Oh, that's right. I really don't remember what you were going to get to. Oh, Royce asked the question. So what happened in the rest of the meeting with the ice cream?
Basically, what I remember is you saying, I had this thought last night as I was falling asleep, laying, because you're just...
And I think about you at night in my...
Yeah, he thinks about me at night. So once we got past the creepy part of that, he's like, wouldn't it be interesting, I think your word was intriguing, if someone could buy a property and live in it for a year, owner occupied, and then move and buy another property and rent out that one they were just living in. And you said, well, that would take a very, a special type of person, because there's a lot of people that A, don't want to move every year, or B, they have a family or they have whatever, they aren't, it's not a traditional way to do what you want to do. So again, I go home that night and I think to myself, well, I'm kind of quirky. I could see myself doing that because, how hard could it be to move every year as a trade-off? Because usually my mind is always thinking of, well, I can do anything for a year if it gets me where I want to go, right? So you're a little uncomfortable. So you sell everything you possibly can and you eat top ramen because you're trying to save every single penny that you're making because you need to really hit this $15,000 mark because James and Brian think you can do it and you don't want to let them down and that would just be disappointing and, so it's true.
So that was one of your motivating factors?
Motivation is that you two shame me to a point where I am succeeding. That's the whole That's the whole thing. They shame you to the point that you're embarrassed to even get up and show your face if you aren't moving forward with your goals.
You're a jerk, James.
That's the secret. Mic drop. We're done.
That's pretty interesting.
That is not
Yeah.
the discussion.
Yeah.
That's not the one that you thought? So what's interesting about you remembering
That
that,
was what I
we
took
should
from
we
it.
should try to check the dates. I don't know the night we went to get ice cream, but I do know the date that I actually built the spreadsheet for Royce because it was saved. I was able to look it up and look at the email when I sent it over to him. Because Royce, I thought was primus nomatus.
Yeah, aren't you the first?
I thought so. Well, that's what's crazy
I
about
don't
it is maybe this was all around the same time and it was slowly grouping together in my mind as to how it all worked together.
Yeah,
But I know I
could
built
be.
the spreadsheet for you based on a little lunch meeting or so that we had at your house.
I don't think Royce knew Mary at that.
No, we hadn't met.
So.
That's weird.
It was a game night, I think.
But I don't remember that conversation. Do you want this on?
Oh wait, hold on a second.
Yeah, I remember it.
I don't remember that conversation. I remember this was at Culver's in
Yeah.
Loveland.
Loveland.
So the discussion I remember was about a deal and how much percentage you would take to do a deal. Do you remember that part of the discussion?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So talk about that.
I don't remember that. What was it? You lead it because I don't remember.
Yeah. What do you remember about that discussion?
That I am not enough of a shark, I think. To wholesale and to do that type of stuff, I mean, you have to wheel and deal and be confident and be, yeah, and think on your feet and be able to just be like, have the answer and be right there and know where you need to be and you know, it's kind of a dance with the other person.
Yeah. There was another discussion though between me and you and what it would take for you to do a deal with me and sign on a loan and how much percentage of the deal you would take. How much percentage was that?
Oh my God, it was pathetic, I think. I think I was a total.
No.
You had me pretty well kowtowed. I was very intimidated.
It was somewhere between 5 and 10%. But basically you said, hey, I would do it for free just to learn, right?
Yeah.
So I think,
Yeah.
you know, part of the learning here is that, you know, you're always able to negotiate even if you're in a position of weakness, right? Like she could have said, I will do it for 25%, and I would have been like, okay, that seems probably pretty reasonable, maybe 20, right? But her first offer was like, I'd do it for like 5 or 10,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, 5 sounds amazing, right?
Settle.
So, yeah. But I think part of that goes to Mary's ability to want to learn, right? She was like, I will take 5% of a deal because part of that deal was Brian will hand walk me through everything I need to know. That was part of the deal. He'll give me all of his documents. He'll basically show me all of what he's going to do, how he leases the property to tenants. And so she would basically get, in some sense, she'd be paying for education without actually having to pay $20,000 or $25,000 for it.
So what's interesting about that to me is, did you have to pay to get that education when you bought your first house, like how to do the rental part and everything else?
No.
Where'd you get that from?
I read so many books and went to all the meetings. Like for that first year that I met you guys, end of 2012, beginning of 2013, I didn't buy my first property until, what was it, March of 2014, I think was our first.
You know the dates, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I closed on my first one in March. But yeah, that whole like year and a half was me just like soaking up everything I possibly could. I mean, how many books of your library did I read?
A lot. I
lot.
know. So Mary, as client, you know,
lot.
she'd asked to borrow books, and I'd loan her, you know, real estate books from my library, and I got a pretty big library. I'm happy to share, and so she read tons of stuff.
I mean, like on everything, you know, the accounting side of it and the asset protection side of it and the real estate attorney side of it and tenant and landlord laws in Colorado side of it and how to do your lease and how to find renters and how to advertise and blah, 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 and on. And you're just thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this?
There's a lot to learn.
But yeah, I think looking back, just baby steps, you know, you just take a deep breath and then be like, okay, first things first. What's the first thing do I need to do? And do that and then go to the next thing. And I'm all about, I love lists. Give me lists and I can, you know, I'm so excited. Ooh, I got number 1 done. Let's do number 2. Ooh, you know, I'm done with my list. Give me another list. That's kind of where I'm at. So.
Did you, at some point, you moved to Greeley, right?
Yes, my first property was in, well, Evans, but Greeley, yes.
And so it became inconvenient for you to attend classes, and we were not doing podcasts at the time. So did you feel like you had all the information you needed and didn't need to come back to class, or did you feel like if you would have come more to class if you had if it had been closer?
Yeah, I probably would have come to class if it had been closer, yes.
Because you were just, I mean, you were working at the post office. What time do you have to go in the morning?
I'm at the post office by like 7:30.
Okay.
7:15,
So it's hard to
so-
stay up late and go in next day and do that.
Well, I was like 30 miles here and then 30 miles back.
Yeah, it's a long drive. How many people are here from Greeley or Evans? Yeah. See, it's a long drive. There's not a lot of people that are willing to make the drive from.
Well, and plus then I have to stay and, BS with you two.
Yeah, and then there's ice cream afterward.
Yeah, so, it's 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and you're like, gosh, Yeah, I need to be in bed
If
at
Brian will let you go.
Yeah, I have to be in bed at night, I'm getting old. I can't stay up late anymore.
So basically you started coming to class. The
Yes.
wholesaling, for whatever reason, you decided wasn't a
Yeah,
good fit.
it went-
Maybe it's a
yeah.
class with Brian or
So
something
I
like that.
shelved that, which was fine.
And then you called the lender and got qualified for your loan and
Yes.
found out what you needed to do that.
Yes.
At the time, did we know about 1% down loan programs, or were we doing
No, I think for you and I, we were doing FHA. That was our goal.
So we were
was
doing,
to do 3.5%. So that
You
was
were-
my first property.
and we were doing FHA because you wanted to do a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex.
Yes.
You were pretty set on looking at multifamily
Yeah.
to do your first one, because you really wanted to get into one of those first.
Well, because it seemed like a slam dunk. You live in one side of your duplex, you rent out the other side of the duplex. They're paying most of your house payment, if not all of it, depending on how much rent you can get and how you purchased it, what your house payment is. So to me, that seemed like a no-brainer.
So let's clarify. So when you bought your first duplex, you think your tenant in the unit next to you was paying all of your mortgage
No.
payment?
No, they were paying, at the time, I had to come up with $600 to make up the total of the payment. They were paying,
And we're just talking about principal and interest. We're not talking about
No, that's
vacancy
everything.
or maintenance or anything like that, are we?
no.
Okay. So to be clear, it was just a difference, $600 difference in the principal and interest part of your payment.
Which even then I was happy, because where are you going to live? At the time, it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath duplex property. It was, how many square feet is that? Probably 14, 15?
It's pretty decent size,
It
but
was
it
an
was
okay.
up-down duplex. And
Yeah,
then, well, it was up-down on each side. So it was side-by-side duplex, but
With a
there's a
basement.
basement where for each one.
For $600, I mean, essentially that was my rent.
Did you have a roommate at the time?
Like I said, I was in a relationship, so even that $600, he was paying $300, I was paying $300. So again, I'm living in a property for $300 a month. Gee, that's, I'm
What
not
was-
going to complain about that.
What was the property you were living in before that?
I was in a single-family home in Windsor.
And what was the cost to live there,
Um,
approximately?
oh shoot, I'm trying to think, what was the house payment? It was like $1,900 a month, so both of us splitting it, we both were spending, what is that?
$950.
Yeah.
So you went
So
from
I-
$950 a month, your share, to about $300
Right,
a
so
month,
I
your
was
share.
saving 600 and some right off the bat there, which was awesome. I was like, yay! That
Was it-
went straight into the savings account, clearly.
Was it a significant difference in living standards? Was it like a crazy nice house that you moved to a piece of crap duplex, or
No, not at all.
So it
And
wasn't.
none of my properties, I guess that's another thing we should bring up. A lot of my properties are, I would say that they're not more than 10 years old when we buy them.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're newer.
Yeah, like say 5-ish.
And some of
years
the
old,
some of the
maybe.
ones are brand new.
And yeah, I've done a couple new builds. So the properties are nice. I'm not interested in purchasing properties where I need to fix them up while I'm living in them, because that's just, again, that's not my niche. I don't want to do that. And I also feel like if I'm purchasing nicer-ish homes, that's kind of one of my first criteria when I walk into a property is, would I want to live here? Because I want to attract that type of a tenant that's like me. The people that'll walk in and there's holes in the wall and the carpet is crappy and things aren't looking so hot, the people that are like, yeah, I'll live there, you probably don't want them living in your property if they would settle for that. So I like to be in nicer neighborhoods that are, quiet and safe, and you don't feel like you're going to get knifed or shot when you come home, because you're looking for renters that are maybe new families starting out, or, who doesn't want to feel safe in their home.
So for fair housing, we wouldn't want to be looking for families specifically.
True.
Just want to make
But
that
people,
clear.
yeah, people in general. You want to be safe where you're at. So that's kind of where I look, is houses that are nice, on the nicer side, just good, solid.
And so the first one you bought, you put 3.5% down for a duplex. And you moved in there. Did you live there for a year? Is that what your requirement was for doing the first one?
Yeah, I was in there for a year, and then I refinanced it, and then you of course, after I refinanced it, said, Mary, you do realize that you refinanced and now you have to live in it for another year. And I was like,
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. So you basically moved into a property, you got FHA financing. When you sign on the loan for FHA financing, and lenders chime in if this is wrong. When you live in a property for FHA financing, they make you sign a document that says you're going to live there for a year.
Yes.
And part of the
Minimum.
nomad model is you're going to live in a property for a year, then you're going to convert it to a rental, buy another one, live there for a year,
Right.
you convert it to a rental, and can keep repeating the process until you get the number
Yes.
of rentals.
Yes,
And then you, at some point down the road, and you decided to refinance it, and when you refinance it, that re-triggers the
Yeah,
1 year point.
It started
Right?
over. I reset the clock, which actually, in hindsight, I was still okay. Because then I thought, okay, well, that gives me an extra year. I can save that much more. So I was like, okay, well, this is still a win-win. We'll go with it. Which, again, don't have a mindset of, oh my gosh, why did I do that? And your whole world is over. No, just.
What was your motivation for refinancing?
Yeah, why'd you refinance?
I refinanced. I went to it almost dropped at a whole percentage point as far as what the interest rate was. So I was, the house payment went down. So I was saving that much more on top of the 600 whatever I was already initially saving. So for me, perhaps looking back, maybe I shouldn't have refinanced, but it all worked out in the end.
Do you remember what you refinanced into? Because I think at first you had
It was still an FHA.
But was it a variable rate or was it
Yes,
fixed rate?
it was an adjustable
Okay,
rate.
so this
It
is
was an
what
ARM.
so this is what happened. So Mary bought a house, FHA financing, 3.5% down, moved into a duplex. She lived in one side of it, rented out the other. She had a live-in boyfriend at the time, and the boyfriend was paying for part of the mortgage payment too. After a certain period of time, I don't remember what it was, she said she got some solicitation, I'm sure, in the mail or got a call, and
Yeah.
they said, I can reduce your payment. And so she said, yeah, reducing my payment sounds like it's in plan. Let me go ahead and refinance. And so she refinanced into a FHA loan, same loan type, but instead of doing a fixed 30-year fixed rate loan, they offered her some type of loan that was fixed for a certain period of time.
Fixed for 5 years, and then it would adjust. It could adjust up 1 percentage point at year 6.
So
that would be the most.
Yeah, so she basically traded in short-term, lower interest rate for an interest rate risk 5 years down the road in this particular case.
Yeah.
And for her, at the time, it seemed like a good idea. It helps me save money and stuff like that. Had she talked to me, we probably would have talked about it, and I'm not sure I would have recommended that.
No, you would have talked me out of it.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, look where you are. Did it really hurt you?
No.
No. So I think that in this case, she was okay, but I would advise you talk to your lender that you worked with before and
Yeah.
talk to your real estate broker if you're going to do this model and just get some second opinions. I mean, I'm sure if she talked to Brian, Brian would have said something as well. So any of us could have talked to you, and you may still have done it because you may still have made sense to save that money, but I probably would not have done it because there was a cost to doing the refinance, right? Ate into some equity too?
Yeah, it did.
And then,
Yeah, the closing costs.
and then if I remember correctly, have you since refinanced out of that loan?
Yeah.
So-
So now it's back into a conventional 30-year fixed rate, which actually, ironically, is the same rate as when I started originally. So I was like, huh, well, isn't that interesting? So I was,
How long did you hold your loan for? Do you know? Like what was
like
the
how
duration?
long was the adjustable rate? Oh,
The adjustable one.
2?
2 years?
Yeah, I think it was just 2 years.
It wasn't due for adjustment, but.
Right, and then I got with Patrick, because Patrick knew about it, and I was like, we should watch this as far as how the market's going, and we decided rather than waiting 3 years out, because I think it was going to adjust in 2019, at the time was our January 1st, and so we were talking at one point, and you said, we may as well just do it now, because who knows what the interest rates are going to be in 2019, because they were at that time already kind of starting to creep up. So, yeah, it all worked out.
And is it a FHA loan that you refinance? So now Mary basically refinanced into a conventional loan. So now she actually has her FHA loan eligibility if she wanted to use it again, although it's hard to move back into a duplex, triplex, or a fourplex once you're living in single-family homes. So it might be hard to do, but she could, in theory, use that FHA loan again.
And she had enough equity to get rid of PMI.
She had enough equity. So basically she bought this. Do you remember what year you bought your duplex?
Yeah, 2014.
2014 is when she bought it. So over the last 4 years or so, she's had enough equity where she put 3.5% down originally. The property went up in value, and she paid down a little bit on the loan, such that she had 20% to do the conventional financing, refinance, and not have to put in additional money. You didn't put in anything more into the property. Did you put in any more when you refinanced the FHA the first time, like to get the variable?
I think they probably what the closing costs were. So what, 5-ish?
You just kind of
5,000?
rolled it
And
into the
rolled
loan.
in.
You
Yeah.
basically just
No,
added
I-
it to there.
Yeah, I didn't.
So what's
wasn't
interesting
any
about
cash
that
out
is
of my pocket.
even with rolling in the refinance costs into the loan, she still had enough equity. She had 20% equity to refinance out of the second FHA loan into a conventional loan. So this is not like an example of I did everything perfectly and I happen to have really perfect timing. This is like with making some little mistakes, I
I
think.
Forrest Gumped my way through it, like I do most of my stuff.
Yeah, what's great about it is you take action, and I think the taking action part overcomes a lot of that. And so, I mean, we're going to talk numbers here in a second, but do you have another question?
I was just going to mention that I know you said the interest rate was the same as your first, but one of the big differences is that you got rid of that PMI,
Yes.
which would have been for the lifetime of the loan,
Right.
with the FHA loan. So that's a huge advantage that you're able to get rid of that so quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, what was the purchase price? Do you remember?
Yeah, 320,000.
$320,000. Were you in a multiple offer situation? Were there multiple people making offers to buy that?
No.
No?
No. Do you remember? I
No.
brought it to the meeting, and you said that's a scam. It's not for sale. 'Cause
Oh, I
found it
do
on-
remember this.
I found it on Craigslist. Okay, so they were going to put it on the market in a week, but they put it on Craigslist. It was a retired sheriff
Yeah.
from Greeley.
I do remember this now. Yeah.
And he was moving, he was retiring, and he was going to move out of state, and that was going to be it. And he owned both sides. So his real estate agent, they put it on Craigslist. I found it on a Wednesday. I brought it to the meeting. I printed it off, and I said, hey, let's go and look at this. And you looked at it, and you were like, that's way too nice. There's no way.
Yeah.
It's a scam. I said, well, call him anyway. What the heck? So we went and looked at it on that Friday in the afternoon. They were going to put it on MLS Monday morning. I pretty much talked to this woman, and I won't say I got down on my knees and begged her, but
It was close.
I was very heartfelt and was like, you know what? I'm just starting out. This is my first property. I'm just looking for just somebody to give me a chance. The market is so hot and I can't compete, which is true. There was so many people that were coming in with cash offers, that were partnering, that were, you know, big time real estate investors that were doing this, and here I am, little Mary, you know, I don't know. And I apparently made an impression on this woman, and she went to bat for me with the seller and was like, dude, she seems like a really great girl and blah, blah, blah. And she really is honest about this. She wants to, you know, so they accepted my offer that we wrote it up that night. Yeah. And I remember when we walked through it, we were in the basement, and I was like, holy shit. I said, this is the one, isn't it? And then your heart starts, because you're like, what's the worst that'll happen? Oh, you'll buy a property. And then your eyes get huge because you're like, oh my God, I'm buying a property. And
That's the worst that could happen, by the way, that you buy a property.
yeah, in my world, because then I'm like, oh crap, this is really real now. I'm not just, you know, gosh, I really wish I could do this. Now I'm actually doing it, and I'm going to have to find renters. And what if that all goes south and I can't make the payments? And, you know, you start spinning off into, oh crap land.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute. How do you overcome that? You know, you're doing your first deal. You've got a lot of fear. You've got a lot of anxiety. Yeah, I mean, I think it's relevant for a lot of folks because, you know, if someone hasn't done their first deal, or even if they have, I mean, there's definitely some anxiety over doing that. Am I doing the right thing? Am I making a mistake? Am I paying too much? I mean, how do you overcome that fear?
For me, it's a constant. It's always constant. My whole life, life is scary. I learned early on that life is scary, but do it anyway, kind of thing. That's my dad. You know, if you're scared or if something's going on or you're not sure, he's like, just make a decision, Mare. Even if it's the wrong one, just do something, and you can always fix it later, or make it the right decision later. Or, you know, like with the refinancing, I probably shouldn't have refinanced it into an ARM, but I did, and it worked out, and then I ended up back where I started with more cash in my pocket. So no harm, no foul, right? So as far as like internal voices or any of that, usually I just tell them to shut up and keep going, because life is scary. I mean, there's always change, there's always challenges, there's always something that you think is going to go one way and it totally goes south the other way, and you're like, huh, didn't see that coming. So be flexible and bend and make it work.
Yeah. How scared were you?
How scared was I? On a scale of 1 to 10, I was probably at a 702. Well, you know, I'm coming from having to make this huge, it was at the time, I think the house payment was like $2,075 was going to be the mortgage, and the other side wasn't rented yet, and here I am trying to move all my crap and drag my, at the time, significant other with me, who's like, I don't want to move, and I'm thinking to myself, we're closing in 32 days, so let's get packing. So yeah, there was some anxiety, but I knew it was going to work out because you have to start somewhere, right? So I figured, this is it. You start somewhere. So let's do this.
Okay. So you lived in that property for almost 2 years because of the refinancing fiasco sort of thing.
Yep.
Then after that, what'd you move into next? What'd you buy next?
We bought a new build in Greeley in 2016, moved in May.
Okay. And remind me, we basically said new build from the start, or did we look at like 500 houses together?
Yeah, we looked at probably 500 houses, like we always do. We always look at 500 houses, and then we were like, Mary, let's just, because the market is so hot, and you're going to end up making your offer highest and best, and you're going to end up paying more than you wanted to originally pay on the property anyway. So again, James is like, why don't you just buy brand new? You're going to end up paying the same amount, and it's a brand new house. Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, we looked at a lot, and I think the hard part about, at least with you in particular, the new construction part is sometimes we'll go look at a ton of houses because on the surface, when you're looking from your desk at night, right before.
Oh yeah, the pictures look great, and then you get there and you're like, oh, what happened?
And you're like, for $200,000, I would totally buy this. Why would I wait and buy $320,000 new construction? Let's go look at this $200,000 property. And then we get there and
you're like, and I wouldn't pay $150,000 for this, and I'm going to end up having to offer $243,000 so I can get it because there's 800 other people in Colorado that are wanting the same home.
And it backs to railroad tracks and
right.
Smells like really nasty cat pee.
And that's the other part of it. Don't be, and I think, Alan, you had said that you lost a deal that you had mentioned that you had really loved the house. This is investing in properties it's a business. If the numbers work, you do the deal. If the numbers don't work, but your wife is telling you, but I love the bay window in the front. It's so gorgeous and it has beautiful tulips in the front yard. Put your hand over her mouth and say, you can't be emotionally involved in it. You have to be willing to walk away, because if it's not a good deal and it's not, like if you're not, because I'm also looking at it, not only am I purchasing the property right now, is it a good deal, do the numbers work, but I'm looking at it a year from now. When I move out of this property, do the numbers still work? Am I going to be able to get rent for the property that's going to cover the house payment at least? And that's always what I'm looking at. I don't ever feed my properties. I want them to at least pay for themselves. If they don't make me any money, okay, I'll let them slide on that. But
so let's talk about that for a second. So are you like really hardcore numbers, sort of like what Brian and I teach? You're not.
No.
So what is your version of doing the numbers look like?
You guys are very precise, and you're like almost like for Brian, if it's his cash on cash return, if it's a certain percentage rate, he'll pull the trigger. If it's not, like if he wants 6% out of something and it's going to be 5.2, he might not do it for that 0.8 of a percentage point, perhaps, depending on what he's,
In Brian's defense, you got to draw the line somewhere.
You do, absolutely.
Otherwise, 5.2 is 4.8, is 4.2, is 3.
Is
right.
-5.
Right. For me, normally when I'm looking at it, if we're confident that the rent is going to pay for the house payment and say it's going to make me between $100 and $500 a month on top of that, for me, I'll do it.
So you're ignoring vacancy, you're ignoring maintenance reserves, you're ignoring property management because you're managing it yourself.
Yeah, I manage all my own properties, so I don't care about that.
So what else are we missing? Those are like the 3 ones. Basically, you're saying
it's not that I ignore them, but for me, the way I'm looking at it, because I have the post office job. So for me, my properties are not supporting me in any way. I'm not looking at them to fund me monthly at all. I'm living off of the money that I make at the post office. So that being said,
let me just interrupt. So that's your criteria going in. The properties that you've owned for a while, they are throwing out positive cash flow at this
absolutely.
point. But when you buy it originally, especially in a market where it's hard to make positive cash flow to begin with, your criteria to start with is basically I want the rent to cover the mortgage. And you're willing to invest a little bit either from your other properties or your current tenants, because a lot of times you get roommates.
Yeah, I get roommates.
Or from your job, you're willing to actually say, this is me investing in owning this asset and eventually.
For that year.
For that year.
Yeah.
Or maybe year 2, whatever it is.
But any money above and beyond, like the properties that I'm renting now that I don't live in anymore, all of that money goes straight into the maintenance account. So for me, I'm not taking a percentage each property. I'm just every dollar that I've have left over after I've paid all the house payments and the insurance and the taxes, blah, 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 that all just goes back into the maintenance fund.
So let me pry into your finance a little bit. And again, if I get
Yes.
too private, too personal, let me know.
No, we're
So
good.
basically, you have a separate account set up for all of your rentals.
Yes.
And you dump in all of the rents you get from all the
Yes.
rentals. You pay all the mortgages from that.
Yes.
And you pay all the maintenance from that.
Yes.
And so basically, all of your rentals now just go into like one
Yeah, my business LLC.
your business LLC account. Okay. And so really, that self-funds itself.
Yes.
Are you doing, like, you said you had roommates when you're living in a property yourself, too?
Yes.
Are you putting the rent from roommates in there, too?
No, it falls under a different category for me because I'm still in it personally as the personal residence. So the home that I'm living in personally isn't technically the business yet. So the next year when I move out of it and it becomes a full rental, then it goes over to the LLC side,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Yep.
But the rent from the personal side,
You use
yeah,
to pay
I'm
your
paying-
current mortgage.
Yeah, I'm paying that house payment out of my personal account for that.
Okay. So basically, we looked at a whole bunch of properties. We couldn't find one that worked for us. We even made offers, I think, on a couple of
Yeah,
them, didn't we?
2 or 3.
And then we couldn't get one to accept our offer that you liked, and a lot of the other ones, they just were not good fits after we looked at them.
Yes.
So eventually, we found new construction.
Yes.
And I remember a weird part of the story, which I'm not sure if you remember, but I think I took you to the new construction like months earlier.
Maybe.
And I think what you told
Maybe.
me at the time was,
Sometimes I'm a slow learner.
this is a stretch price for me.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to spend that much. And then I'm going to, because you have your base price for your house. And with new builds, you have to think, okay, they're not going to landscape the back. So you're going to have to landscape. That's between $4,000 and $6,000, depending on your landscape person. Then you're going to have to build a fence. That's another probably $6,000 after you pay whoever you're going to do it. Because if any of you have done fencing, and I have, you don't want to do it yourself anymore. It sucks. So you're like, yeah, $6,000, that's worth it, because I don't want to dig all the post holes.
So this is in addition to your down payment, is your complaint.
So let's say you purchase the property, then you're going to have to come up with another $20,000 because then also another surprise, window coverings are considered a
Upgrade.
yeah, an upgrade. So is your refrigerator. Did you know that? Yeah, they'll give you and your microwave. That's an upgrade. So you'll get a stove and a dishwasher, but
So the ones we're doing now, we're rolling all those
Yeah.
into the cost. So we're not
The
having to
first
do
time we
that.
didn't.
Yeah, but the first
we
time,
didn't.
I think you basically said we're going to do this all outside the transaction.
Yeah, I was like, sure, what the heck? Thinking to myself, oh crap, that's like 20,000 cash. Oh crap.
Yeah, so 20,000 cash is almost another down payment,
Yes, it was for me.
right? For you. So basically, if you had not
So it would've
done
been
the
another
extra
house.
cash out of pocket, you could have had enough for another down payment at this point.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, she went and bought a house
Yep, in 2016.
after that, moved in,
Yep. 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
4-bedroom, 2.5 bath.
Rented out 2 of the rooms.
So she got roommates. How much did the roommates bring in?
Boy, at the time, what was I think rent was $525 a month per room, and then they were paying a third of their utilities because there was 3 of us. So that's what, $1,050?
Okay.
And then-
do you remember what your payment was?
Yeah, it was $1,490 something, $1,495.
So it looks a lot like $1,500, and you're getting almost $1,100 in rent.
Right.
So you're living in the house. Your part of the principal and interest part of the payment is $400 a month.
Yes.
Okay. So this is partially how she's able to save up down payments for purchasing the next houses.
Yeah.
By doing this. So she bought her first property with 3.5% down. What was the down payment on the second one?
It was 5%.
You did
It's been-
5%?
Yeah, it's been 5% every house after.
Okay. So you're doing the 5%. Did you skip
Conventional.
over the 3% plan? Okay, so she opted to put in 5% down because it was a slightly better interest rate, and she'd rather have that, and you were able to do it. So she's doing this, and one of the ways she's able to save up the 5% earning, you want to say how much you earn?
How much do I earn? Oh, that I take home?
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
You don't have to say it if you don't want
No,
to.
what's 16 and 16? That's
32.
$3,200 a month is what I bring home.
So Mary makes $3,200 a month, and over the last, whatever.
Yeah, that's,
After
yeah,
taxes.
take home.
So $3,200 after taxes take home.
Right.
And over the last how many years, what do we estimate you had in real estate holdings at this point?
Right now, we're just over $1 million.
So just over
Like
$1 million
1.1-ish.
in properties. Okay. And we'll
When
go
with
into
this, yeah, and with the property, because I'm under contract for my next property that I'll close in August, hopefully if it's done by then. So that'll pump us to like 1.4-ish
Okay.
with that property.
So she's able to do this, working at the post office. You're not like upper management, the CEO of the
I'm a
U.S. Postal
mailman.
Service. Okay, so you are like mail
I'm a
person.
mailman,
You
yeah.
have some seniority there, so you're not like entry level, right?
No, gosh, no. I've been there. This is my 15th year
Yeah.
at the post office.
So you can kind of get a feel, though. She's able to save up the money and do this. That's pretty impressive, actually. And I think part of it, and she probably won't say this about herself, but she is amazingly frugal. I think that's true,
I'm
right?
so cheap.
Well, you know what's actually, so let me say this.
I live on nothing and
She
I'm
is
happy.
She is super frugal except for one area.
Oh,
In one
crap.
area of her life, she is extremely extravagant. Money doesn't matter. She wants the
No.
best of everything.
Yes.
She spends like crazy money that she probably shouldn't spend, which we talk about sometimes. But
But I'm happy.
Her one soft spot is
My horse. I love my horse.
she has a horse.
Yeah, which I bought her last year. Always have wanted a horse, have a horse background, showed, and and it's been such a long journey of.
And what did you say to me? I want to buy a horse. We need to buy a house first,
Right.
and then I'm going to start spending money on the horse.
Right. Oh, and boy, have I spent money on the horse. But yeah, she will eat before I do.
There you go.
Yeah, she's a good girl.
So she's super frugal and able to save up. And one of the ways that she's able to save up this money by doing this is by getting roommates. And we'll talk about the kind of roommate strategy because it's worked really, really well for Mary. She told me.
I Forrest Gump my way through it. I don't know. It just happens.
Yeah, and she told me one time. She said basically, my roommates are going to pay for my down payment.
Yeah.
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 So if you think about it that way, her roommates are basically funding her next purchase. And we'll talk about details and how she does that math. So you go and you buy your second house. You get roommates. Basically,
Yes.
they're paying 11. Oh yeah, sorry. Where's the question? Oh wait, Alan.
7 questions. Tons of them.
So I remember you said you had a significant other
Yes.
as you moved from the first to the second house.
Yes.
How did he handle the roommate situation?
Oh, at that point we didn't have roommates because he and I were splitting our side of the of that house payment, making up the difference. So at that point, I guess you could think of it. He was the roommate, if you think of it that way.
He was a low-paying roommate.
He was a very low-paying roommate.
And she has since traded him up for regular full-paying roommates.
Yeah, I traded him.
What services or how do you find your roommates for the properties you're living in?
When I first started out, it's been mainly Craigslist.
We have update on that. So Craigslist is still super popular, but also, I hate to say it, but you should try Zillow as well.
And also now, it's becoming, for me, it's becoming word of mouth. The people that I'm living with that are roommates are telling their friends that, when I'm moving to my next property, they're saying, hey, Mary's going to be moving out, or, there's a room that's going to be available, or you should go and live with her in the next property. Also, roommates that I've had in the past have moved with me to the next property because, you've hit it off or it works out well, and so they're like, yeah, because it's hard to find people that aren't crazy, right? Be honest. When you're on Craigslist looking for a perfect stranger to share your home with you, and you're a single girl, it gets kind of scary. So you have to be really careful. And so when you find people that you trust and that aren't going to trash your home and that pay the rent on time and that, like I said, I call it the creepy boy vibe, that you feel comfortable with. Because in my opinion, your home, if you don't feel safe in your home when you come home from work, or you're trying to come up with ways how you don't want to go home from work because you don't want to be there because they play their music loud, or they don't clean up the kitchen and there's 2 weeks worth of bologna sandwiches on the couch. Ew. So yeah, for me, it's been word of mouth. And then also with my properties, with my renters that are in now, I'll get calls from them that, hey, my friends are looking for a place. Do you have any vacancies? Because they know I'm always moving once a year. So for me, to answer your question, Corey, that's kind of where I find my people.
And then also, when I've done postings similar to that, I always end up getting hit up for a lot of people renting the whole place. Like, oh my God, you're renting a 2-bedroom for $700. Like, I'll take that right away. I'm like, no,
You're like,
it's
no,
just
no,
one
just room.
for that. And so I get hit up by a bunch of people looking for that, looking for the whole place.
Yeah, you have
How
to.
are you specifying? Because I'll say single room or room available and 2-bedroom, condo or house or whatever.
You're doing it right.
Okay.
Honestly, that's it, because people don't read. Like they're reading what they think they want to hear. if that makes sense. And so they're looking at stuff and they're not actually looking at the ad. They're just picking out what they think they.
Like, oh my God, great deal. This
Yeah,
must be
hot spot.
lovely.
So,
Okay.
so there, to some extent, you are having to kind of slog through not only the tire kickers, but the people that aren't reading. You know, like in my ads, it'll say non-smoking or vaping of any kind, because people will say, well, I don't smoke, but I vape. Well, technically, you're breathing something out of your lungs that's going to be on my walls and on my window coverings and in my carpet. Or you'll say no pets, and they'll call and say, oh, well, I have a Great Dane. Do you take dogs? And it kind of says no pets. So, no, I'm sorry, your dog can't come with you. So yeah,
So
that
just go through them all.
yeah, it just is what it is.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
I was wondering, and you can say no to this question if you.
No.
Okay, but I'll ask it anyway.
Okay.
Would you mind sharing what percentage of your real estate portfolio is debt? So of the 1.1, what percentage of that is debt?
It's probably a lot. She can go try to do some math in her head, but she's been putting 3.5% down, then 5% down, then 5% down. So it's quite a bit.
So let's think.
10% or 90% is debt?
Well, it may not be that much because the properties have been going up in value.
Can we just walk through purchase price and what they're worth now on the board?
Maybe.
I would think it's
Say 70.
25% equity.
25% equity, says her lender.
Like the most recent property doesn't have that much, but if you look back to the first duplex, she probably has, I don't even know what I would say on that one right at this point, but
A lot.
I would say collectively across all of them, she has about 25% equity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
With the first one, obviously, you know, that duplex has a boatload of equity. And then the property that we're just talking about now, I don't know, that has a lot. I mean, and it's just growing, because she bought these properties at a good time, especially that duplex.
Yeah.
And the property in 16 too.
Yeah,
I think
it's doing
by
well.
the time that neighborhood closed out, you had 40 grand in equity.
Yeah. Well, and before we even closed on it, they upped the price by, what was it, 15,000?
Yeah, they were raising them like 5K.
To answer your question, but it's not like 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely equity growing in these.
Yeah. Next time we should try to get that on mic for stuff. No
Yeah.
worries.
Well, and the good news is, and speaking with that and in saying it, I have the properties, but I don't make any of the house payments, if that makes sense. It's, for me, I don't care about the debt, if that makes sense. I'm not looking at that side of it because my properties are paying for themselves and I have renters that are paying for the house payments. So for me, each month, I'm not like, oh my God, I have $6,000 of house payments I have to come up with.
Here's
It's
another.
not like that at all.
Here's another interesting way to look at this. You know, so Mary, if you have 25% of equity, which is what I think Patrick is estimating based on his kind of like insight into your finances, your lender, you know, that's like $250,000 worth of equity.
Okay.
How long would it take you at the wages you're earning now to save $250,000 as a mailman?
I would probably, if I go back and become 18 again and start over, I mean, basically from purchasing my first property in 2014 and here it is just now, not even halfway through 2018. We are halfway through.
Yeah.
To do that in 4 years from nothing.
Yeah, so actually, let's think about it this way.
It would have taken me forever.
So you're saying over 4 years, you've made about $60,000 per year. And what do you make?
At the post office?
What do we say, 30?
Slightly less.
Slightly less, yeah.
So basically,
Not a
she's
lot.
able to grow her net worth by more than her total income just by doing a little bit of side hustle, getting some roommates, and buying 4
Right.
properties over that time period.
And
So-
again, I mean, not everybody wants to, A, you don't want to move every year, but B, a lot of people, oh, not only am I moving every year, oh, but now I'm living with perfect strangers too. You know, oh, that makes a lot of
Which has a
sense.
side benefit, which we may get to.
It does? What's that side benefit? When the,
Yeah, I'm not sure what the side benefit is there yet.
was that the side
Well, that could be
benefit?
I was thinking
Ask me how I know.
Yeah. So, I mean, granted, in our market, a lot of that, just as a devil's advocate, right? A lot of that is appreciation, right? And so some of it's debt pay down, some of it's depreciation, some of it's cash flow, but a lot of it is appreciation. So it definitely depends on that. My question actually rewinds to what you were saying when you were in the duplex, and you can pass on this if you don't want to answer it, but I think it's relevant to a lot of people. I know it's relevant to some people in this room.
Okay.
But how difficult was it to have your significant other not be invested in doing this process?
How difficult was it?
What did you do to overcome
And what'd you do to overcome that? is
What I
Brian said.
did, we parted ways. We parted ways.
Well, they're not together anymore, so that clarifies.
For me, it was hard at the beginning, but then you make a decision. Honestly, I mean, that is a good question. It's going to make me sound like a cold-hearted, you know what.
But it was hard for you, right?
Okay.
Emotionally, it was hard for you when
I
they were
was
not
selfish. Yeah.
James and I could see it.
We did.
You guys knew I was going to kick him to the curb, huh?
I wouldn't say that, but I definitely saw that it was hard on you.
Let me put it this way. It is difficult. If you are in a relationship, married, etc., if you're thinking that you want to do the nomad frame, it's going to put stress. I will be honest with you. It was stressful because he didn't want to move all the time. I was the one putting up the cash, so I was stressed about that because he was basically the benefit that he was getting from it was each property I would have essentially been moving us into, he would have been having to come up with less and less for his living expenses. I was doing all the work. So not only am I working at the post office all day long, 6 days a week, I'm coming home and I'm, trying to do all this other stuff and I'm managing the properties and I'm freaking out in my head and he's not being supportive. So it was difficult. And then you get to a spot where you're like, wait a minute, I could be doing so much more faster, quicker, without trying to drag this person along who's not happy, who doesn't want to do it. Why am I putting them through that? Why am I putting me through that? So we had a conversation. I mean, it was tough, and we decided to part ways because that wasn't what he was wanting to do. He's like, I don't want to move all the time, and I don't want to manage properties, and this isn't what I want to do.
Yeah, and I'll kind of cut it off from there because relationships are extremely complicated, and it was not just a
Yeah, there was other parts.
This is like it's sort of like that is definitely a stress factor, but yeah.
That wasn't the point. My point is just that it's hard. There's stress that applies, especially if you're doing nomad. And then I think the other thing that people don't realize is there's an education piece. So you get excited about something, you're like, hey, I'm going to go do it. You still have to educate your partner, right? You can't just be like, hey, let's go do this and expect them to be like, okay, right? Hey, we're going to sell our stock and we're going to buy houses or whatever it is. Yeah. There's an education piece that you as the excited person needs to do to build it up and bring them along. And then if they don't want to do it, then you can kick them to the curb.
But by all means, if you can do it together, please do. Yeah. I'm not advocating if your significant other doesn't want to do it with you, then you need to just, no.
Mary is much nicer than when she's leading on.
Yeah.
I just had a question for you, and I guess everybody that's doing the investment part of it. You mentioned the negative debt, right? That you have on this. What do you prepare for when? And I hate to be a doom and gloomer, but what do you prepare for if a turn happens and you don't have this booming thing happening? What is your plan at that point with your properties?
Well, the good news with that, it's buy and hold. So for me, I'm not worried if the market tanks and my properties aren't worth what they were. And this also speaks to when you're originally purchasing the property. Be smart. Don't look for $800,000 homes or $1 million homes that are going to have a house payment of $5,000 because you're probably not going to, if the market does tank, and you're right, it might, and I might need to adjust my rents accordingly, and maybe, I have to be competitive, I have to drop my rents $200 or $300 a month. For me, I've been purchasing properties in such a way that my house payment is, what's the word I want? Theoretically, even if the market significantly takes a hit, I'm still going to be okay, to the point that they will at least pay for themselves.
Yeah, so she's definitely buying and prepared if rents go down. I think we definitely talk about that. We have those discussions when we're out looking at houses.
And what goes down is going to eventually come back up again too. So
over a long term. And then we've talked about how you could see, next year the market could go down. It could be 5 years from now. Who knows? And it could go down significantly, stay down significantly for a little while. I think Mary has a very long-term perspective. This is not money she's trying to spend tomorrow.
No.
It's not money she's trying to spend even in 5 years from now. I think she's got a much longer-term horizon. And, we haven't really talked about this, but you have reserves from some of the other savings you were doing.
Yes.
That if really got down to it, you could fund it a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, I think she's definitely trying to put stuff in. Mary and I have conversations, and I have conversations with other clients as well about the idea of you want to save at least 6 months worth of all of your expenses on your property as if they were completely vacant. So you want to be able to pay your principal, interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, everything on your property, every one of them, you want to have 6 months worth somewhere that if things kind of hit the fan, you would have access to those funds. And it doesn't have to be super liquid, like, that you can access it the very next day, but, a stock market account or something like that, I think, is a place you could store that. I think it's safer to not do it in stocks, but I think, some people are going to do it there anyway.
And along that line as well, and speaking from the lender side of it, as you're acquiring more and more properties, and this is kind of where Patrick and I are, he's starting to put the bug in my ear that he's like, okay, so now that you're getting more and more properties, as you're looking for more loans, the lenders are wanting to see that you have that reserve. Because they're like, okay, well, she seems like she's kind of spreading herself a little thin. Do we think she's going to be able, they may or may not approve me for my next loan. If you're not, it's smart to have the cash reserve because it's just smart to have that. But it also makes you look better depending on what your goal is. If you're wanting to purchase multiple properties, each property you're purchasing, you're almost ratcheting it up a little bit, and they want to see some savings.
Yeah, and I'll mention one other thing about that, and that is, so what's great about Mary's situation in particular is her kind of threshold for how much she needs to retire. She's currently living and investing on $3,200 a month, kind of take-home number. And so if you think about, she's got 4 properties going on 5. The rule of thumb, if you want to do it in your head, is you take 2/3 of the amount of rent you're getting on a property, and that's about what you would net if you paid off the properties and it was free and clear. So if you're getting $1,800 a month in rent, if the property was completely paid off free and clear, you'd be able to net about $1,200 of that in your pocket. And so for Mary, if she basically let her properties get paid off at this point, if she stopped now and didn't do anything more, the properties are probably $1,800 a month in rent. I'd guess they're sort of in that ballpark.
Yes, yeah.
So she'd have 4 of them going on
of them are.
5. So 4 of them at $1,200 a month. She's basically at $4,800 a month in income coming in from the property. So basically,
But I don't have to work for it. That's the other part of it.
yeah,
It's
once the
passive.
properties are paid off.
Right.
And so she could go and work at the post office for more years, start aggressively paying down the properties instead of acquiring more. And at some point, the properties are going to be paid off, and she'll have $4,800, whatever adjusted for inflation looks like. But it'll be like $4,800 today that she could live on. And so really, her retirement plan is largely done. You could look at it as you don't need to do anymore. And we talked about you taking a break
But it's
and
so
not
much
buying.
fun.
Yeah.
It's like tattoos. Once you get one, you want to get more. I don't know if anybody has tattoos, but that's how I have felt about mine. But once you get going at it and you're like, hey, this actually works and I can really do it and I'm gaining confidence and it's snowballing quickly and you're thinking to yourself, wow, this isn't as hard as I thought it was, because everybody needs a place to live, and that's all I'm doing is I'm just living, and a year goes by and I'm living somewhere else.
Yeah,
and it's just,
on the new one, though, we're even talking about delaying, right? We're talking about you don't necessarily need to do your 6th one in a year if you don't want to. You can.
But I
you
want
can kind
to.
of.
You totally should.
But I want to.
Brian says you totally should.
But
you
I
could
want
kind of.
to.
You could regroup. You could actually improve your cash flow position. Wait another year. Let things kind of improve.
I
And
want
then if you
to.
have a market decline,
Right.
you would be more conservative doing that, or build up more reserves. You could go ahead and use that year in order to go from 6
but then
months
you
or
look,
whatever it is.
and we talked about it with this one. We were like, maybe we should just wait, because we
did.
a couple of months ago. It was like, gosh, this is, you kind of got socked in the jaw a couple times, and it's
Yeah.
like, man, we're not trying to make offers with nobody, blah blah blah, and new builds are more expensive, and I don't, And James is like, well, so sit out a year and save some more, and I'm like, but then I'm losing out on a year's worth of equity and debt pay down, and I'm going to end up, and also the house that I could have bought now that I'm griping about the dollar amount. If I buy that same house next year, I'm going to have to spend another $40,000 or $50,000 above, right? 'Cause
Maybe,
the market,
maybe.
right?
Who
If
knows, but yeah.
We don't know. So it's like, I may as well just, quit whining and just do it, in my opinion, because I feel like you may as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So basically, if you guys have questions, let me know, but we're going to go on to the next property. So basically, you bought this second property. You had roommates.
Yes.
You lived there for exactly a year, or did you extend it out, or what did you do for this
It
one?
was a year and 2 days.
A year and 2 days.
It was a year and 2 days. It was, yeah, we closed on May 30th, 2016, and then I bought the next one in 2017, and we closed on June 1st. Yeah,
Okay.
May 31st.
So she was really trying to do very aggressive timing, looking at properties, 3 months in advance, trying to find
Getting
something.
stuff-
And then when
yeah.
you're looking 3 months in advance and trying to get an offer accepted in this market where you're trying to do a 60-day closing, really hard to do. Really
It
hard
was.
to do. So eventually you get to the point though where you're 30 days out, and then you're super aggressive because you have a full 30 days you could do it and close.
Yeah.
And so she was doing that, and you found another property.
Found another property.
What was this one?
It's a duplex, a half of a duplex.
So
I
you didn't
own-
buy the full duplex this
Nope,
time?
I just bought one side.
Okay, what'd you pay for the half duplex?
At the time, oh boy, 254, 252.
So 254 for half a duplex when before you paid 320 for a full
both
full
sides.
duplex.
Yeah.
A few years earlier.
Right.
So that's crazy.
Well, yeah, that was how much the market had changed in that amount of time.
I think that's true, and it's a little bit nicer duplex too. What's that? The
Yeah,
third
that's a good
duplex
point, too.
is in Evans. Actually, they're
first-
both in Evans.
Yeah,
Yeah, both the duplex are in Evans.
but the second duplex, the one that was last year, is closer to the Greeley side, so I think it was,
Yeah,
the market
it's
was a little
it's nice.
stronger
It's got hardwood floors. No, I think the other one was newer. Wasn't your first one newer than the other one?
I don't remember. I
Or
think it was
they-
built in 2000, was it 2003? 2002 that one was built?
The third one she bought, the second duplex, second half duplex that she bought.
That one's a 2012.
It looks nice. It's like really, really nice.
That one was built in 2012.
So you went duplex house, half duplex.
Yep.
And now we're doing single-family house. The next one will be another single-family.
So it's really, you've got
Ironically-
5 doors.
Yeah, ironically, it's going to be the same house that I bought in 2016. It's the same floor plan with the same builder.
Smells like Kansas.
Yeah, and actually Michigan.
Yeah.
It smells like Michigan. So yeah, it's the same floor plan with 2 years newer. The base fixtures and countertops are nicer.
What's the difference in price between the one you bought and the
Oh my
other one?
God.
Do you even want to think about that?
How much extra was rolled in too?
Okay, so
Yeah, we
the
can do that. It's $20K for all the
Yeah,
extras.
so the first one was out the door was 266, 268. And then this one with the extras, so the backyard, the fence, the refrigerator, and the garage door. Yes, on the AC. So that extra 20.
Everything's included. Yeah, for
Everything.
about
So
20,000.
so 338, I think, is what we're buying this one for.
338?
337, 338.
Okay.
So that's, yeah.
So just
So 2
repeat what
years
she said.
different.
Yeah, 2 years different. She's buying the exact same house. Instead of paying $290 for it, you're now paying $340.
340.
Yeah.
So.
And one of them was in Windsor.
No.
Oh, one of
They're
them was in
both-
Greeley. Oh, they're both in
They're
Greeley.
both in Greeley.
Okay.
The
that's
one,
right.
yeah, one's in Homestead Heights, and then the other one is going to be in Sheep Draw, which is basically, yeah, it's like north and just like one street to the west. So I'm going to be,
Close.
yeah, and all of my properties are like within 7 miles of each other. They're all just, which is, yeah, they are very close to the fur baby. That also has become another criteria that it needs to be a proximity to the barn, which, you know,
Evans ones are far west Evans.
yeah. Yeah,
What is the? Are you going to do roommates for the new one?
yes.
What did you do for roommates for the half duplex?
Okay, so it has a finished basement that has a bedroom and bath downstairs and like a living area. So I have a young couple that are renting out the basement, that's kind of their little apartment. And then I have a guest bedroom and guest bath upstairs that's kind of down the hall. I'm in the master bedroom and bath. So I've rented out the basement to my couple, and then I have a gentleman in the guest room, and so he has his own room and his own bathroom.
What are you getting for rent for each of those?
The basement is $795, and the guest bedroom is, what is he paying? $645.
So 800 and 650. So it's like 1450 a month.
Yes.
What's your mortgage payment on that?
$1,446.
So she is living in a house where
I'm making $4,
where the roommate she has is actually paying for her principal and interest part of her mortgage.
which
not
is
the,
why I say I have these properties, but I don't make any of the payments on
In
any of them.
fairness, it's not just principal and interest, it's PIT, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
PIT.
it's everything. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is being
Yes.
paid for.
What she's been making it sound like, essentially.
Yeah.
Not just P&I.
But then when you say that it is better than what it sounds like, but then again, that's another side of it. I always try to be very conservative so that I'm pleasantly surprised, if that makes sense. Where I think, oh, I could get this rent for it, but when we run our numbers before we're purchasing whatever property, let's pretend that maybe we could only get this much for it. And does it still work? Okay.
So this is sort of what you're saying about your roommates are basically paying for your down payment.
Yes.
Because they're covering your entire mortgage. You take whatever you would be living in for that house, and you
And
could
it
save
goes
it all.
straight to the horse.
Or, yeah, exactly, go straight to the horse. Or you
But
could
it
say,
does
hey,
go to
listen,
savings.
if I were living in this place, I'd be paying $1,400 a month in my mortgage payment.
Right.
But now, because someone else is basically doing that, I could
Yeah,
take that
I
money.
can just pretend like it doesn't, yeah, it's not even there.
And so that would be like, what, $16,000 or so saved up? And what's the down payment on the new one? Do you know?
It's going to be 22,
22 with the closing costs and everything?
yeah, 22,000.
So it's pretty close to that. If she wanted to wait more than a year, she could basically extend for
Yeah.
5 more months or whatever it is and have it all paid for. But you're doing really close timing on this one too, aren't you? You're closing pretty soon.
Well,
yeah, but
yeah.
It's pushing out to the end of August with the builder. I think it's more, it's like
It's-
15 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
I
going
know.
to extend
So for
out.
me, I'm like, oh, we got to get moved.
Yeah, she's chomping at the bit. She just lost 3 months on this.
I know.
Yeah, actually, so let's actually briefly talk about that. So Patrick basically said, she's chomping at the bit because she's being pushed back 3 months by the builder, and she can't move 12 months because the builder's kind of pushed it back. In this particular case, because it moves you back to August or September, you're starting to move out of that peak rental season.
Yes.
And so at some point, you may need to voluntarily
until
delay.
spring.
Yeah, so that you actually are able to get into the peak rental season again. So
Which again is fine, because now at this point, I'm getting to the spot where it's, as Patrick sees, like you're starting to get, some properties under your belt. There's still that sense of urgency, only because that's my personality.
do you still have that now? You have a sense of urgency? I mean, I
Oh,
know
yeah.
the answer from how you call me. And
I
email
always
me.
have a sense of urgency. I know, I'm
James
always
is
kind
trying
of.
to delay you. Like, I will counter the point of like, you don't need to wait until
James
renting
is-
season. You're
I
living
think-
in the property yourself,
And
Yeah.
the one you're moving out of, you can find a renter that's either going to rent for a year and a half or whatever you need, and it's a one-time deal. Don't let James slow you down.
So Brian
But
is.
that's why we're so good for each other, because I am super duper like type A personality, like, okay, this is my goal and this is where we're going, so let's get to it.
You and
I'm
Brian
done-
both.
Yeah, I'm done talking. It's time to do what we need to do. I'm not going to second guess. I'm not, because Patrick says it'll work and James says it's going to work, and so, okay.
There's a commonality actually. Both of these guys, Mary and Brian, are extremely successful, and I think part of it is that driving, get things done sort of thing. I think I tend to be more of the slow down, think it through, make sure you feel comfortable with stuff.
Well, I'm thinking it through, but you kind of help me to, it's almost like stop and smell the roses along the way. Like, I have this end result, but at the same time, don't forget, Mary, that you have to live your life, right? You need to enjoy yourself. I'm so focused on the future that you're missing out on what's happening right now. So it's almost like enjoy the journey kind of thing.
So is your realtor pressuring you to buy houses?
No. My realtor does not pressure me at all to do anything. Honestly, and same thing with Brian and Patrick for that matter, all three of these guys have always been an awesome source of information. They know their stuff. I mean, inside and out, they know what they're doing. So even when I first came to them with the revamped idea of, okay, I'm going to do owner occupied and this is what we're going to do and I'm going to live in it for a year, there's so many people that were like, this is never going to work. And you're going to manage your own properties? This is never going to work. You can't do it. You're on your own. You're a girl. It's not going to happen. Never have I gotten that from either of them. It's always been, okay, is this what you want to do? All right, these are the options that you have available to you. This is what, there's always been that open dialogue of, okay, let's figure it out.
And Mary takes action. That's the great thing about it. I mean, like,
And that's where it keeps going, right?
I think the action portion is where you take action, you take the information, you decide what you want to do, you take the action, and then it gets basically supported and it pushes you further, and then you take more action, and that cycle
Yeah, it
keeps
builds
going
confidence.
and going.
Like even when I started in 2014, I'm not the same person that I am now, if that makes sense. There's a lot more confidence to it that you're like, hey, I am doing this. And there's also confidence in these guys that it's like, hey, they said I could, or they said this is what was going to happen, and this is what's happening. I trust these guys. And that's another part of it too, if you're wanting to do this. I say that I'm doing it on my own, but I'm not. I have amazing people around me, and friends, and Royce, and Tammy, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without these guys, clearly, because they know their stuff, and they know, like I'll come to them and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking, blah, 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 what am I missing? And they'll either say, I think you got all your bases covered, or they'll say, did you forget about this? What about that? If it was me, I'd be thinking about this. So there's that side of it. So get people around you that have your best interest at heart. And I think someone had mentioned that when we were doing the first introductions, that people are just in it for the money. They just want to do the deal and then be done with you. That's not James or Patrick or Brian, for that matter. They do this because they like it. They want to help people, and that's why they're successful, because they want to make their clients successful. So
I don't even have clients.
Well, so
Don't be
I
bitter.
appreciate you saying that. I'm sure they do too. But to your credit, you take direction and
Yes,
listen.
I do. I do.
Right. So there's a lot of people that go, that class was neat, but I'm going to do it on my own.
Right.
Or
Don't reinvent
I'm
the
not
wheel.
going to ask Patrick if I can buy a horse. Do you remember that? You're like,
I did
I
ask
want to
you.
buy a horse. Is that going to screw up my next transaction? And I'm like, no. But that's the thing, is like, you take advice. If we set out a plan that 11 months from now you're going to buy a house, you pretty much executed it.
Yeah.
Right? And you didn't
Yeah.
deviate from that. You didn't decide, well, I'm going to quit my job. And, I think there's a lot
was
of people
close a
out
couple
there that
times.
either
Ooh, I
don't
wanted
take
to.
action, or they get it in their head that they've got a better idea and they take the wrong action.
Mm.
And so, I'll attest to it, because I look at your finances, but people go, how can I buy all this property? I don't make 6 figures. You clearly don't have to.
Yeah, clearly.
You don't even have to have perfect credit. You don't have to have $100,000 in the bank.
No,
and
and I
everyone
didn't.
thinks, I'm never going to buy an extra house. And once we did the first one, once you bought that second house, you were like, we could do this every year.
Yeah.
And basically did, right? And
Well, in that first house, talking about being close to the cuff, I had that $15,000 cash, and I think I got into it for out the door, down payment, inspection, appraisal, closing costs, the whole thing. It was $13,800. So I had $1,200 left in my account. And Brian asks, "Were you scared?" Yeah, I was freaking, because I'm like, $1,200. What if yeah, this could go south fast. But at the same time, it's like, but look at what you would be saving, because then I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm only really spending $300 a month for my portion of my rent, of that living expenses. So I was like, but look at how much I would be saving, and in a couple months, my savings account will be up to, $2,500, and then it's going to be $3,300, and then in the next year, it's like it's back to $16,000, and you think, okay. So you don't look at this, don't look, yes, be aware of the scary, be smart, but at the same time, don't let the scary stop you, if that helps. Don't use it as an excuse like, oh, well. And we all have our threshold for risk. Mine's just a little bit different than other people's.
Pressing yourself outside, if this is your comfort zone, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you press yourself outside your comfort zone.
My comfort zone
You
has
basically have a
changed
new
so
comfort
much.
zone.
Yeah,
right?
huge.
So
My comfort zone is way different. I think in the back we had somebody.
So during your nomad journey, what has been your largest hiccup?
My largest hiccup?
Yes.
Wow. Honestly, I haven't really had a huge hiccup. There's been a couple little like I've had to evict a couple of people that were roommates. Honestly, it hasn't been bad. I've had a tree fall on my original duplex. Then you have to, you get the text from your renter that says, "Look, the tree fell on my house this morning," and you go, "Oh crap. Let me make some calls. I'll get back to you." So for me, there haven't really been hiccups. And I think part of that, and this might also be the other side of it, I feel like what you focus on and what you look for is what you're going to get. So when you talk to people that say, I don't want to have rental properties and I don't want to manage them because it's too much of a headache and people are going to trash it and it's not, blah, 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 and it's all the negative stuff. I don't focus on that. Yes, there are some of those things, but on the whole and the majority, the people that I have met are incredible. They're just, really neat people that just want to have a nice place to live, or they want to start their own family or buy their own house, and so they'll live in my properties to try and save up. And then I will push them towards James and give them, Patrick, and refer them and say, hey, if you're looking for your next property, these guys are awesome. So I find so many neat people because that's what I focus on. That's what I look I look for. So I guess for me, I don't look for hiccups, so I don't get hiccups, I guess.
What was related to that, because it's kind of, what was the one or two things that you wish you would have done differently?
Fortune builders, I wish that I had done differently. But
In
again,
what sense?
C'est la vie. It is what it is. And if I hadn't done fortune builders, I never would have met you two. So I feel like, again, it worked out. But yeah, I miss that 25,000 because I think about it now and I'm like, wow, 25,000 cash. Rats. But, you know.
Part of the investment to get where you are.
Yeah.
Right? There's lots of people who have done fortune builders, and I'm sure lots of people who have quit.
Yeah, the 25,000, and then they have nothing to show for it, and then they're bitter about it because they're like, it didn't work. Well, maybe not for the wholesaling side of it, but it did work. I am still doing real estate. I'm just doing it differently. Go, boy, go.
Are there any properties that you wish you would have bought? Maybe one on Empire?
No. Sure, there's a bunch that you're like, gosh, but no, I don't, no. Because all of the properties that I have, I've lived in all of them, and they've all worked out. I mean, it just.
Didn't you have an AC go out in another property?
Yeah, the air conditioning and furnace on both sides of my duplex.
So.
Like part of Mary's like charm is that like
My charm.
There was a really hard discussion about a fourplex on Empire in a car.
Oh, I do remember this.
Remember this?
I do, actually.
And it was like, I don't remember what the property was listed for as a fourplex. It was like $320,000,
In Loveland.
which we would
Yeah.
all go buy today.
Right.
Yeah.
Buy 10 of them.
Yeah.
you would buy
But I think-
one that came up and you would pay $400 easy. And
At the time,
whatever
it just
was,
wasn't
it was
right.
Like, you're probably gonna have to pay $340, and she's like, my comfort zone is like $325. I don't remember.
And they're like, what's another $15,000?
You're
Crazy.
Like,
Yeah.
go make the offer, and I pushed
Yeah.
really
He did.
hard to try and get her to make
He
the
did.
offer, and she didn't.
And I didn't.
And part of that is to her credit, right? She did it the way she wanted to do it inside of her comfort zone, which now in a heartbeat she would have probably paid $370 for that property if she could rewind time.
But it's
not knowing what she knows today.
It's part experience and
It
stuff,
is.
too. Yeah.
Have you had to deal with any tenants that want to rent to buy? And if so, how have you dealt with it?
Brian might even be able to answer that question better. No, I have not. Only because that's not my strategy. I want to keep all my properties for myself. So I haven't. When people have asked, I have had tenants that are like, "Hey, can we buy this?" And I'm like, "No. You know, you are more than welcome to stay as long as you would like. And if you're looking to buy another house, I've got a great real estate agent and a lender that I would be more than happy to refer you to." But so I've never felt pressure that way, like, you know, hey, we want to buy your property from you.
And we have tons of classes on that. And if
And
the
that's
market.
kind of a lease option.
Yeah.
Again, that's another strategy that people can do. If you want to buy properties, you know, lease option, and I know Brian has done. Again, you could probably speak more on that topic. But
Yeah, so if you go to the podcast, there's tons of classes on that. And if the market ever transitions and we need to kind of fix some
and maybe
things,
I would do that.
that would be a strategy that we would talk to Mary about doing, because it allows us to, you know, get a little bit
makes
above
sense.
market rents and
Yeah.
get a little bit of upfront option fee payment, and you know, kind of liquidate a property without spending a lot on realtor fees on your exit. So we would talk about that at that time, and we've done classes on it, so you can definitely do those. There's another question back here. Got about 10 minutes left, guys, just so you know.
So, something that I've run into recently, and I'm kind of surprised by, is I've had 2 homes, and I'm just trying to go towards a 3rd townhome. And in going down, I'm being challenged by underwriting and pretty much denied, saying they want 20% down, knowing that I'm intentionally going to do the style. Have you guys run into that, and how have you combated, or just do you just switch to another lender period?
Hi, meet that.
Do you want to?
Yeah, so we do run into this. Let me give the microphone to Patrick, who can kind of comment on it a little bit.
I think that's
And-
why I work with Patrick.
Yeah, and you know, part of it is, I'll let Patrick actually
Yeah,
comment.
they
He's the
know my
expert.
intention.
So I think, you're going from a single family back to an attached property? Is it much smaller? I mean, so there's some logic there. You have to think about the nomad process is, if she had a 3,000 square foot single family home and said, hey, I'm going to buy a 4-unit in Greeley, and I'm going to live in one of them, and I want to do it owner occupied, that's probably fraud for occupancy is what the underwriter is thinking. And it doesn't mean that she's not going to live there, but that is a real gray area that post Dodd-Frank and post the mortgage crisis, they're going to scrutinize occupancy probably more than your income in this day and age. I mean, James and I, like, it's not a magic bullet. I can't do everything. We had a guy that wanted to buy a house, the exact same house that he lived in, across the street.
In worse condition.
In worse condition with an unfinished basement, and he said he was going to occupy it. And unfortunately, my underwriters said, there's no way. That guy's not moving across the street to a worse house. And he wound up closing with a different lender. But for the most part, those moves need to make somewhat of a sense. They can be lateral. In Mary's case, it's not like she's going up to a 4,000 square foot house. If you're trying to buy a multi-unit, almost always do that as your first transaction. Because think about it. Let's say, I don't know, you're going to move into a 4-unit building after you owned a single-family detached. That's probably a stretch for an underwriter, unless there's a reason. I'll give you a great reason. I just closed a couple that the wife had brain surgery. They lived in a 2-story house that was much too big. She could no longer go up and down stairs. She had vertigo. They bought a duplex to owner-occupy half of it. And honestly, there was a simple letter from the borrowers explaining why. That they were going from a nice house on the southeast end of Fort Collins to a duplex, partially because their income had declined because of the illness, and it just made sense, right? So you never want to commit fraud, or you never want to like not occupy it. And James will reiterate this when we talk about it. You're living in these places for a year, because invariably the underwriter will find out if you didn't.
So we have a bunch of people that come in here from time to time. We talk about the Nomad plan, and we'll ask the question: so many people have bought a house and had someone show up on a Saturday morning at 7:30, knock on the door, and make sure you're living there. And they do that. They do occupancy check. We never ever encourage somebody to say you're going to live in a house and then don't move in and don't have the intention of staying there for the full year. This plan works awesome. Don't screw with it. Just follow the thing. You want to mess with a partner who's going to loan you, $3 million worth of worth of purchase price when you're buying 10 properties that are like $300,000 each, by deciding to screw them over on one deal and shortchanging them for the 6 months or whatever you think you're going to
Well,
do.
you may think it's not a joke, or like it's a joke.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, you might
Have like, oh, I could get away with this and do it 2 or 3 times. I have a former tenant who's serving time in prison, hard time for loan fraud. It's no joke.
And so there are ways where it can be less than 12 months. And they're normally, let's say you're getting married, you're having kids, you got relocated. It's not this, if you're not in there for 12 months, you have to pay the loan back. But you sign, at the time when you sign the note, you say, I intend to occupy this for the next 12 months. Life happens, right? People get relocated, people get married, people have twins, and they're like, crap, our little condo, we're outgrowing it. That's a simple letter to an underwriter too, at least to my underwriters, that would say, hey, we're having this life change, and we need to move in 9 months, or whatever. Or a relocation, you can move it wherever you want, right? Happens a lot with the oil and gas industry. Guys move up here from Texas, then they get relocated up to North Dakota. They bought a house, and 6 months later, they're moving somewhere else, and they got to buy another house. The underwriter's not going to say no, because there's some legitimacy to that, right? But for the most part, you want to focus on doing it every 12 months, and you want them to be at least lateral. You don't want to go up massively or down massively, or go from like a single family back to a 4-unit. To go from a single family back to like an attached dwelling, I don't know that I'd see a lot of pushback on that. It's still a single family dwelling, even though it's a condo or a townhome. But I think the big one is going to be, you've got a single family 3,000 square foot house and you want to buy a 4-unit in Greeley. That one I can tell you is not going to fly. So.
Yeah, and the way we teach it is we want to comply with the lender's rules. So, we're not trying to teach get around anything or circumvent stuff. They're telling us we need to live there for a year. So guess what the plan is? The plan is to live there for a year. So.
I don't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
That is for sure. That kind of puts like, like, where am I going to buy my next property if I'm living in jail?
That's right. Or how are you going to see your horse? Yeah.
I know.
That's right.
Who is going to take care of Pixie?
Yeah,
Holy
there you
crap. Yeah.
Any final questions?
I need a visit.
Oh, got one over here.
You mentioned an LLC. How are you buying your properties? Are you buying them in your name and then?
Yes, because they're owner occupied, you have to buy them in your own name. And stop me, Patrick, if I'm giving incorrect info. Because technically what the lender will say is, if you're owner occupying it, how can your LLC own it? Because your LLC can't own or occupy anything. So, and this will spill into asset protection, which is another topic that I know Brian loves to talk about.
And we teach the Nomad asset protection now.
So at some point, and again, it's going to be different from state to state and blah, 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 and I'm not advocating or telling you this is the waiver. I'm not professionally giving you advice. Once you're no longer living in those properties and they're straight rentals, yes, you could put them into an LLC at that point if you want to. But for me, for now, the properties that I'm purchasing, to answer your question, are in my own personal name because I'm owner occupying them.
Yeah, and just to kind of reiterate Mary's comment there is, definitely talk to your attorney, talk to your lender, and talk to your realtor to make sure you're not putting yourself in a situation that you're going to make a mistake and then have to explain yourself later.
Or hurt yourself.
Yeah, or hurt yourself for getting the next loan or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's buying them in her own individual name, moving in. That's the owner-occupant model for the Nomad stuff. Yeah. Couple more questions. We got like 5 minutes.
So when you're doing the owner occupancy thing, is it better to, are you looking for a multifamily or single homes, or does it just depend on what you're finding?
When I first started, I was like, shoot, if I could do a duplex every year and buy a duplex and live in one side and rent out the other side, oh my gosh, I would totally kill it. Then James pointed out to me, yeah, Mary, you only have your one FHA loan spot that you can use, and then the rest of them are going to be conventional, which means you're going to bump yourself to at least 5%, if not, say, 15 to 20% down, even if it's owner occupied. So long story short on that, deep breath. For me, yes, I wanted to look at multifamily initially. Now, I'm looking for single family, I'm looking for townhomes, I would do a condo, I would do another duplex now that my FHA loan is open again. I'm mainly looking for properties that, like I said, that do the numbers work. Is it going to be rentable moving forward? So again, going back to have that end goal in mind, but be flexible. I had my heart set on having duplexes, being like, oh, I could just buy 5 duplexes and then I've got 10 doors with 5 loans. I'm done. Right?
It's hard to do the multifamily once you do the first one. If you have VA benefits, you could do one and then you could do your FHA. So you can get 2 multifamily if you could do FHA and VA loans. Actually, you could do more than 1 VA, but that's kind of a advanced thing. But after that, you're doing single family homes or condos or townhomes and stuff.
Right.
So it's much harder to do just based on down payment too.
So it's, you're just have that end goal, but be flexible with how you're going to get there.
So after you move out, you transfer to your LLC, or do you use like a C Corp or something like that for asset protection since you have multiple properties?
Don't use the C Corp.
We don't recommend using the C Corp, but definitely check with your own attorney. But I doubt an attorney would ever recommend to use a C Corp for real estate holdings.
I guess that answered it, huh?
Just do you move them all into one LLC, or do you have an LLC for each property?
Again, that speaks to asset protection. Some will say for asset protection, based on if you're going to get, for the possibility that you might get sued, to protect each of your properties, put each of them in their own separate LLC so that if something happens at one property, they can't get all of them. They could only get the property that's right there, theoretically. That being said, some people, because if you're going to have each property in an LLC, then it's going to have its own checking account. So then that makes an accounting nightmare for you because you're like, which house payment is coming out of which account? And you have to keep, if you're not good at that, you're going to, get screwed up. So then you could possibly put all of your properties into one LLC.
Yeah, I'll cut Mary off just because we go into this in like excruciating detail in 4 hours worth of class, and it's hard to justify an answer with like a 30-second version. So definitely go check out the 2-hour class. And I think Brian, we're going to teach it again. It's coming up in like June or something like that. There's like
C Corp is double taxation. S Corp if you're using it for property management. Otherwise, use LLC.
Yeah.
So you touched on something with the 5 multi-family properties. If you were able to do that, and from a cash flow standpoint, say the 20% down, is that a better cash flow strategy, or is it better for the lower down payment?
So our market has been getting crazy where even the multifamily properties are coming up. They're not having great cash flow either. So it depends on when you buy it. But if you're trying to buy them now, the cash flow is not going to be significantly better even on the multifamilies in our current market. And there's some really bizarre exceptions, but overall, we're seeing those properties they're being listed for prices that don't make sense for the rent you can get. So it's hard to make those work. Last question. All right, that's it then.
We're good.
Well, thanks again, Mary. We really do appreciate you coming. Was that helpful to kind of see Mary kind of share her insight into this? Yes, we really do appreciate Mary, and thanks again.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
super, super inspiring to do that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So stick around for the class after the class. Feel free to do some networking. And if you have any questions for Mary, she'll stick around for a couple minutes, but realize she has to drive back to Greeley. So
it's so
it's going to
far
be a long
away.
drive. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you all next week.
Thank you. You think? Yes.
Thanks for